So I kind of walk to the front and I get up there and I turn around and look out in this audience and I look in their eyes and it hit me what they needed to hear.
The man, Russell.
There's a network marketing company called Prove It, and I help them build out some of their initial messaging and sales funnels, and this is the company, this is their drink. So this is a drink, you drink it, put your body in a state of ketosis. Barely 10% of you guys know what that means. Everyone else is like, what is he talking about, right? Brian, who's the owner of the company, he said, hey, we're doing a big event out in, I think it was in Vegas, and he's like, can you come and speak to the leadership team? So I fly out there to Vegas, and I get there and I land and I'm walking to the hotel, and what I see, all these people, and all of them are wearing t-shirts that say, ketones are greater than glucose, okay? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And I wrote the pitch for this thing, okay? And they're all walking, and they're rocking around, and they're pouncing on people, and like, hey, you need to get your body in ketosis, and like, you need to drink this, and they're pouncing on all these people. And I was like, huh. So I get there and walking through this thing, and I'm watching this process happen, you know? And I get to the hotel room, and I find Brian, and I was like, so what do you want me to talk about tonight? At the thing, he's like, oh, whatever you want to talk about, man, it's cool. And I was like, okay, well, we come in this room, and there's a room of 100 of the top leaders in the company, and they're all sitting there like going crazy excited, and Brian walks in, and he walks to the front, grabs the microphone, and introduces me, and then sets it down, and I'm in the back with my backpack and flip-flops on, and I'm like, I don't know what to do right now. So I kind of walk to the front, and I get up there, and I turn around, and look out in this audience, and I look in their eyes, and it hit me what they needed to hear. And I looked out there, and I said, okay, I've been watching you guys for the last hours. I'm walking through the lobby. You're doing this wrong. And I said, if you look at yourselves, this was you, I don't know, 6 months ago, a year ago, and you were just a normal dude, happy as can be, and all of a sudden somebody came to you. I don't know if somebody gave you this stuff, you drank it, you liked it, or some process happened, something happened that gave you this epiphany where you're like, I should be drinking this stuff. And you had this epiphany, right? I remember like when I had my epiphany about funnels, I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world. And I started geeking out, right? And so I go on this huge journey over here. I go on this journey and I'm studying and I'm learning and I'm doing the worst thing that marketers could ever do is we start geeking out on the topic, right? So I'll put glasses on this person because they're like totally geeked out, right? I have a friend, her name's Kim Claver. She wrote a book called, If Your Product's So Great, How Come Nobody Will Ever Buy It? And one of the chapters is called Technobabble. And she says, this is the reason why most people can't sell. They learn all this stuff, all these things, they're studying the back and they're like, and then they go and they're in a hotel and they see like their prospect walking past and like, oh my gosh, this is it, this is my chance. Like I have a chance to sell this person, we're gonna change their whole life. And the person comes out and then they pounce on the person, right? They pounce on them, they start spewing out all this technobabble. And they're like, look, you need to be drinking this stuff because I don't know if you know, but ketones are greater than glucose. And if you had beta hydroxybutyrate salts in your body, you'd be melting fat off. And the poor prospect is like getting this technobabble just shot at them and they're like, I don't know what to do, right? And then they run away. And they're like, oh, nobody will buy my stuff. Okay, now the technobabble is not what got you to buy. It's not what's gonna get them to buy. The way you sell stuff is to stop, and you've got to come backwards on this journey and come back here and remember what was it that gave you this epiphany. You didn't wake up one day and you wanted to be teaching fitness or finance or gardening or whatever your thing is. Problem is you're still gonna slip back into this technobabble, right? For some reason, we love these words, they feel so smart. Our status goes up every time we say them. And we're like, oh, well, I know these big words. I learned a little trick, and I call these kinda like bridges, okay? And what a kinda like bridge is every time I'm giving a message, and I hit a word that's kind of like technobabble, I have to stop. And I say, you know, it's kind of like, and I liken it to something they understand. So when I wrote the pitch for Prove It, ketones is a word that most people don't know. So as soon as I said ketones, I'm like, ketones. I'm like, it's kind of like a million motivational speakers running through your body. I'm like, oh, cool. I get that. Part of telling the story is telling the story. But have you ever noticed that sometimes you'll try to tell someone a story and you're like, okay, this is the deal. And you start telling them what happened and you're so excited and you explain it to them and then they're like, oh, wow, that sounds cool. And you're like, no, like, dude. And you retell the whole story again. And like, no, I heard you. It's cool, man. And you're like, no, like, you had to be there. If you'd have been there, you would have got it, right? Who's ever said that before? Okay, it's frustrating, right? And you think about it, the reason why is because like the person didn't have the same experience you do. So if I want somebody to have the same epiphany that I had, I can't just like give it to them like, here's this epiphany I had and shove it down their throat because they're not gonna get it. What I have to do is I have to get them in the same state that I was in, right? Like, have you ever seen the movie the new X-Men movie that's out at the time, there was a scene where Magneto, you guys don't know Magneto, who becomes the bad guy in the future movies, he's a little kid, and they're taking him and his family into this Nazi concentration camp. They see the fences, the metal fences kind of move, and the Nazis are like, okay, there's something wrong with this kid. And so they bring him into a private room, right? They have him, and they're trying to get him to move a coin on a desk. And they're telling him, like, you need to move this coin. And so he's trying to move the coin, and he can't quite move it. And so finally the Nazi guy stands up, shoots his mom. He comes back with like this look of fear, and that fear turns into like anger and rage. And you watch the scene where he just destroys the entire room. Now, if Magneto was like a lot of us telling stories, 20 years later, he'd be like, yeah, so when I was a kid, I was in a Nazi concentration camp, and they wanted me to move a coin, and I couldn't, so they shot my mom, and that sucked. That's how a lot of you guys tell your stories. Okay, I've heard it. Okay, last year at this event, before Marcus Lamona spoke, we had a 30-minute window where I had a chance to meet him. We wrote that in the contract, okay? So I'm kind of my trick to hang out with cool people. So we're sitting there in this meeting, we're talking and stuff, and he's like, and he kind of walked by the window. He came to say, so what do you guys do again? We're like, oh, we have this thing called ClickFunnels, and it builds websites. He's like, why is everyone in the room so excited then? You have a website build that people are jumping and screaming, like everyone's like, I don't understand what you guys are doing. And I'm like, okay. And so all of a sudden I instantly slipped into technobabble, and I tried to explain a sales funnel and the upsells and all this stuff, and he was like, I don't get it. Why are they so excited? And I stopped and I was like, okay, well, and I tried to really quickly remember, like, well, why am I so excited by this? Why is everyone in the room excited? And so I kind of explained a story about how funnels, what they are and how they work. And he's listening, he said, okay. He's like, well, how would this work for Camping World? So I'm like, well, I'd probably do this. He's like, well, how would this work for Sweet Pete's? How would this work? And he asked me 3 or 4 companies, and he stopped, he's like, every company needs a funnel. I was like, yeah. Yes, they do. This is probably the most valuable thing I can give you. When you understand this is how you sell. It's not about sweet headlines and like copywriting tricks and secrets, all sorts of stuff. It's just remembering what got you to believe what you do. There's a reason why you're so passionate about what you do. And you have to remember what that was, and that's the story you got to tell. Okay, it's not my story, it's your story. And if you remember what that was and why you cared about it, and you get really good at sharing that, that's what gets people to come over here. That's what gets people to follow your mass movement. That's what gets people to believe in you, because you believe in it.